Okay, so for the longest time, and when I say longest time, I would say at least for about a year now, off and on, you guys have been asking me to do a book editions, covers, comparisons video. And today I am coming to you with requested video. This has been the most requested of all the videos that I have had. So we're going to get into that today. I am going to break my comparisons into two subcategories. We're going to start off looking at the differences between editions of the same book in their paperback and their hardback version. Then I'm going to move on to the fun stuff, which is going to be US versus UK editions. So what are my thoughts and feelings on all of these? Editing Mr. Francy will place the books up on the screen for you. We're starting with the paperbacks versus hardbacks. We're going to start off with Caraval. So, paperback and hardback. Looking at the paperback, I must say that I love the paperback. Having read the story, it makes sense as to why there is a circus tent on there. I love the firework explosion that surrounds the word Caraval. And I just think that this book really grabs me. Looking at the hardcover, I'm not really a fan of the hardcover edition. In saying that, it's not the worst hardcover art that I've seen on a book, but if I'm to compare the two, I much prefer the paperback edition, not just because I own it, but because I think that it depicts the book a lot better. I also don't like the use of the red. With the paperback having a very minimal amount of red, I just prefer that a lot more, and as I say, the tent really does show the book off a lot more. So, in this case, Mr. Francy, Judge Francy, is making his decision, and I rule in favour of the paperback. The next book we're going to look at is City of Bones, which is book number 1 in the Mortal Instruments series. So we have the paperback and the hardback. Okay. I love how the hardback looks, don't get me wrong. I think that it is, the design of the cover is really beautiful, and the etchings, the markings, gorgeous. And I love the shade of blue that they've gone for. I think that's beautiful as well. My problem with this being the edition of the hardcover is that it's not a classic book. At least it's not a classic book yet. It might be in the future, and if that were the case, I would love this as a classic book. But for it being a fantasy, this does not spell fantasy to me, whereas the paperback definitely does. You have this guy crouching down, he has this long staff thing, so it definitely shows and depicts what the book is about, so I appreciate that. All in all, this is a very easy one for me to judge. This looks like a classic book. This depicts exactly what it is. So, Mr. Judge Francy's decision is once again in favour of the paperback. Next up, we're going to look at one of my favourite classic books, which is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Here is the paperback edition. Here is the hardcover edition. Now, I am mindful that there are many different editions of this book, but I'm going to compare these two. Looking at the paperback edition, I do actually like this. So, a bit of background, I actually own the hardcover. So, I own this one. But I actually like the look of this one. I love the black background. I love the golden etching around it. The flowers are good, but I don't feel that they need to be there. But if I'm just to judge based purely on the black background with the golden etching, I love that. Over to the hardcover. This is the edition that I own. It is the 80th anniversary edition, and I just think this is really beautiful. I do love this edition of it. If I were to compare the two, I love my hardcover. I really do, but I have to say, out of these two, once again, Judge Francy is ruling in favour of the paperback. I just think that it pops a lot more than the hardcover edition does. Also, you need to keep in mind, I have white bookshelves. If I had black bookshelves, maybe the white colour in contrast would look a lot better. Let's move on to one of my all-time favourite authors, Mr. Phil Stamper, as we look at his editions of As Far As You'll Take Me. This is the paperback version. This is the hardcover version. I have the hardcover edition, but I'm going to look at these two books with fresh eyes and not just let the hardcover win on purpose. And I'm still going to prefer the hardcover, I have to be honest. because I've read the book, I need to look at does the cover actually depict what is going on in the story. And I don't believe that this one, the paperback, is depicting what is going on in the story as much as the hardcover is. First of all, you will notice that the protagonist on the cover is holding something that is black. What he is holding is an oboe. A big part of this character's journey throughout the course of this book is that he loves to play the oboe and one day would love to be a part of a symphonic orchestra. So the fact that we don't have that, and because of how integral it is to the book, the fact that we don't have that in the paperback is very confusing. But also, I love that the hardcover is a little more simplistic. There's a lot going on in the paperback comparatively to the hardcover. So I just much prefer the hardcover. I think as far as the writing of the title is concerned, the title is a lot more simplistic with the paperback. But overall, I feel the hardcover has a lot more of a simplistic cover, and also it depicts the novel a lot better. So in this case, Judge Francy is ruling in favour of the hardcover. Moving on then to Every Value Break by Peter Swanson. Here is the paperback edition. Here is the hardcover edition. Okay. So I own this one in a paperback version. Yes, I understand what they're doing. The setting of this book, which is not a spoiler, is that it is set on a remote island, and they're definitely showing that in the cover art. However, with the paperback edition over here, I love the overall look of this one a whole lot more. Is it showing that it is as remote as this one for the setting? I don't know. It's hard to tell, but I love the colours of this one, especially the fact that the colours are darker in the paperback, and the fact that it is a thriller makes a lot more sense to me. So in this case, Judge Francy is ruling in favour of the paperback, or what they're calling the paperback. The final comparison I'm going to do between hardcovers and paperbacks, I've Got Your Number by Sophie Kinsella. So there are a couple of different editions for the paperbacks and the hardbacks, but the two that I'm going to display are paperback, this one, hardcover, this one. Okay, so I currently own the paperback, this exact edition. I prefer this one. I don't even need to go into too many details or really even think about it, because I'm well aware that I prefer the hardcover over the paperback. The paperback is incredibly simplistic. Now, while sometimes this does work for me, and while I do like the shade of red that is being used, the paperback is not showing me anywhere near enough to tell me what this book is about. I'm not even getting a sense that this is a romance, which is exactly what it is. But when we look at the hardcover, we can tell that this is the case. Not only can we tell that it's a romance, but we can tell that texting, SMSing, has a lot to do with the book because of the way that the I've Got Your Number and the A novel is displayed. I also think if we're just comparing them as far as which one looks more beautiful than the other, the hardcover wins by a mile. The paperback is incredibly simplistic. The hardcover, with its use of the black background and then breaking that up with the pink and the blue and the yellow and the white, makes it look so much more incredibly beautiful than the paperback. So this is an easy one for me. Judge Francy rules in favour of the hardback. And now we're going to move on to something that has not only been very much requested by you guys, but something that I really want to focus on for a long time, which is specifically comparing editions of US covers to UK covers. We're going to start with My Dark Vanessa, and we're going to first of all put over here the US edition, and then over here we are going to put the UK edition. The UK edition just does not tell the full story as far as I'm concerned. The fact that the US edition is done in black and white right off the bat shows the reader this is going to be an important book to read, rather than it being a light-hearted or a fluffy book to read. It's going to have harder and harsher elements in it. Also, the fact that we have this woman whose eyes are closed, you can tell something's going on internally. It really depicts what's going on. This UK edition over here, it just literally shows a lock of orange hair on an orange background, which I also don't appreciate. I don't get why it's orange hair on an orange background. It's too orange. If it were me, I would want to go for a darker background so that the orange hair could be highlighted. To me, there's an obvious standout, and the obvious standout is the US edition. It not only depicts the book a lot better, but artistically it looks so much better. The next book that I'm going to be comparing between the US and the UK editions of is Mistborn, and we're going to go with book number 1, The Final Empire. Over here we are going to have the US edition, and over here we are going to have the UK edition. First of all, once again, I want to make the point that, as you can see, I have a white bookshelf. White books in a white bookshelf, not always going to look that fantastic. This book over here, which is the US edition, which is the Tor Publishing edition, to me just looks so much better. Right away we are drawn into the fact that it is a fantasy. With this book over here, I don't really know what it is. I think my first thought is, oh, is this going to be a book about paintings that have been hung in an art gallery? Because this literally just looks like someone has done a painting and splashed it onto a cover. So I don't appreciate that. This edition is very minimal compared to this one. The colour pops in this one, and regardless of if I have a white bookshelf or not, just comparing the books on their own, the colour pops in this one. It does not pop in this one. And so I would have to favour the US edition. Book number 1 in the Harry Potter series. Over here we are going to have the UK edition, which is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Over here we're going to have the US edition, which is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. First of all, the first thing that pops out at me, and I am a massive lover of US editions of books, but the first thing that pops out to me with the US edition is I don't like the depiction of Harry Potter. I'm sorry, it makes Harry Potter look like a bumbling fool. Is that just me? I just don't like how it looks. Where with the UK edition, Harry Potter looks a lot more intelligent. Is that just me? I do love the pillars and the archway from the US edition. I think that is really beautiful. I don't quite get why we have a blue and red diamond, what is that, flooring or part of the wall? I don't know what that is. Blue and red doesn't mean anything in the Harry Potter world, so it makes no sense. Did they change the Hogwarts house's colours in the US edition? Nowhere in the first book does it even say Harry looked down at the diamond-shaped floor and noticed that they were shades of blue and orange. I don't get. I also don't get what's going on in the background. Is that the castle? I mean, on first glance, I thought that was like a rock on fire or something. Seriously, what the heck is going on there? Let's talk about the UK edition. I love how J.K. Rowling's name is very clearly visible behind the orange. The train that says Hogwarts Express makes so much sense. It does make a lot of sense as well. We're at a train station, Hogwarts Express, Harry Potter at the front of the train. There's a clear winner here, and surprisingly for me, it's not the US edition. Judge Francy rules in favour of the UK edition. The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Okay, this is the UK edition. This is the US edition. First of all, I want to talk about the US edition. It is a lot darker than the UK edition, and that is something that I do prefer. If there is going to be a thriller or a horror book released, in my mind, I'm going to notice it's thriller or horror depending upon how they go about doing the cover of the book, because there are some signature things that are done for every single genre. With thrillers, it is that the book has a dark tone to it. The UK edition does not really lead me to believe that this is a thriller if you don't read the writing below the island. To me, this honestly could be an autobiography. This one, the US edition, it's clearly a thriller. Look at the ominous clouds that we have in the sky. Look at the dark use of the colouring. Look at the font and the way that Lucy Foley, the Guest List, is written. This is a clear winner for me. The final book that I'm going to compare today is going to be the toughest book that I've read so far, which is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Over here we have the US edition. Over here we have the UK edition. First of all, I don't know anyone who can look at the US edition and not feel some kind of an emotional reaction to it. Clearly, we have a guy on the cover who is breaking down and crying. This is a very tough cover to look at. This is a much more pleasing and easy cover to look at. In saying that, is this book a nice, pleasing, joyful read? No. So, UK, what's going on here? Because this does not reflect the book at all. So, I want to comment on the comparisons, but the first thing I want to comment on is who designed this and where did you get the idea that this is a good idea for your cover? Because it doesn't reflect it at all. What does this reflect? It in between the cutouts of the letters that spell little life, we have a apartment building complex thing in the background, and we're seeing, I don't even know, we're seeing brick and a fire escape. Meanwhile, having a guy on the cover who is breaking down with the US edition. Is this indicative of what's going on in the book? Yes, it's indicative of the biggest thing that's going on in the book. So while this one will be easier to gaze your eyes upon, this one much more accurately reflects the book. And so this is a very easy win. Judge Francy rules US edition by a mile, because this one, I don't even know what they were thinking when they were designing it. But that is where I am going to leave it for today. I hope you had fun with me comparing these books. If you have other editions you want for me to compare in the future, be it hardback versus paperback or US versus UK, let me know in the comment section below. But in the meantime, letting you guys go, peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Thank you so much for watching, and happy reading!